The story begins with a guy waking up in complete darkness, confused and wondering where he is. At first, he can't see anything at all, but shortly after, he notices a faint light slowly appearing in front of him. The light grows brighter, and he realizes it's coming from what looks like the inside of an eggshell. A portion of the shell is broken, allowing him to see outside. Through the opening, he can tell that he's in a forest. This only raises more questions, especially when he realizes he can't move his body at all. Before he can think too deeply about it, a status screen suddenly appears in front of him. When he reads it, he freezes in shock because it clearly states that he is a dragon egg. This completely confuses him. His stat window then fully opens, and a divine voice announces that this window displays all of his current abilities, along with numerical values to make them easier to understand. Still confused, he tries talking to the divine voice, demanding an explanation for what the hell is going on. However, the divine voice calmly responds that it cannot explain anything yet because he is still level 1. This only annoys him further. In his frustration, he shakes his body slightly, which causes him to fall from the tree he was resting in. He hits the ground and begins rolling downhill uncontrollably until he finally reaches a river. As he sits there, he realizes he can see his reflection in the water. When he looks closely, he's shocked to see that his reflection really is a dragon egg. Seeing how lost he is, the divine voice decides to cut him some slack and finally gives him a proper explanation of his situation. It explains that he is indeed a dragon egg, which in this world is classified as an F-rank monster. If his shell were to completely break, he would die instantly, meaning he was already taking a big risk by creating that small eye hole. The divine voice continues, explaining that even though dragon eggs are at the very bottom of the food chain, they have the potential to grow into fearsome dragons over time. However, that only happens if they manage to survive long enough. Since dragon eggs are considered a popular delicacy among monsters, because dragon eggs obviously don't have legs, the only way they can move is by rolling. Even after hearing all of this, he still doesn't fully understand what's happening to him. Deciding that staying in one place is too dangerous, he starts rolling away at full speed, trying to get as far as possible. Unfortunately, this only leads to him rolling off a small cliff. He's been falling a lot lately, and because of this, the system announces that his fall resistance has increased from level 1 to level 2. Even so, the fall still reduces his HP, reminding him that he needs to be more careful. Realizing he's injured and exhausted, he decides to take a nap to recover. As expected, when he wakes up, his HP is completely restored. This confirms for him that sleeping fully refills his health bar, which at least gives him one small sense of relief in this strange and dangerous new world. After that, he continues rolling around while thinking to himself, wondering what exactly will happen when he finally hatches. He questions whether he'll turn into some massive dragon one day and be forced to fight enemies non-stop just to survive. As he keeps rolling forward, lost in thought, he suddenly comes to a halt when he notices a giant insect not too far away. Sensing danger, he quickly hides behind a tree and immediately uses his appraisal skill on it. The result shows that the creature is nicknamed the Egg Eater. Just as the name suggests, the moment the insect notices him, it instantly lunges forward and begins chasing him with clear murderous intent. He rolls away as fast as he possibly can, but even he can tell that he won't be able to escape forever just by rolling. At this rate, he'll eventually get caught, so he realizes he needs to gain the upper hand somehow. The worm relentlessly chases him all the way to the edge of a cliff, right as it leaps forward, trying to swallow him whole. He dodges at the very last second. Using every bit of strength he has, he crashes into the creature and manages to shove it off the cliff. The monster tumbles down the slope below and dies instantly. This becomes the very first battle he has ever won. The system immediately announces that he has gained 12 experience points and has now reached level 5. Because of that, all of his stats are fully maxed out. On top of that, he has met the requirements for evolution, giving him the option to choose between evolving into a baby dragon or a little dragon. Since he has no idea what the actual difference between the two is, the system steps in and explains it to him. The little dragon is described as a dwarf breed of dragon. While it's considered small compared to other dragons, its fully grown size is still larger than that of a bear, and it's widely known for its powerful fire breath attack. As for the baby dragon, the system explains that it isn't very well suited for battle due to its short claws and fangs. However, it possesses immense potential and can eventually evolve into many different species of dragons. Naturally, baby dragons are considered a prized delicacy by both monsters and adventurers alike, which means seems they are constantly hunted wherever they appear. As expected, he chooses the little dragon because it's clearly the much safer option for survival. However, immediately after making his choice, the divine voice places its arms around him and tells him not to limit himself. It explains that it has high expectations for him and that he should always aim for the very top. Hearing this leaves him feeling confused. He starts wondering if the divine voice only said that because he chose the little dragon simply because it was the safer option rather than taking a risk. He recalls how the system mentioned that the baby dragon has great potential and can evolve into many different forms. From that, he starts to suspect that the little dragon might not be able to evolve very far, or possibly might not evolve at all after a certain point. With that in mind, he ultimately decides to go with the baby dragon because he doesn't want to have any regrets whatsoever. Even though it might be risky, he doesn't want to look back later and think that he made the wrong choice or held himself back out of fear. The system accepts his decision and grants his wish, and in the next moment, his body begins to change as he transforms into a yellow baby dragon exactly as requested. Along with the evolution, he gains a large number of new skills, and all of his previous stats are significantly boosted compared to before. However, despite evolving, his HP and MP don't refill afterward, which means he's still exhausted and will need some proper rest before pushing himself any further. Almost immediately after realizing this, his stomach suddenly growls loudly, making it clear that he needs to eat something soon. He looks over at the worm he defeated earlier, and to his surprise, it actually looks kind of delicious to him now. He realizes that if he wants to keep getting stronger, he needs protein, and with that thought, his dragon instincts completely kick in. Without hesitating any longer, he devours the worm. After eating, he lies down and falls asleep, and when he wakes up the next morning, he feels energized and refreshed after getting a good night's rest. He heads over to the river to look at his reflection, and that's when he fully acknowledges that he's been reincarnated into this world. However, what he finds strange is that he doesn't have any memories of his past life at all. He can't remember who he used to be, what kind of life he lived, or even whether he was a boy or a girl. Just as he's thinking about that, he turns around and notices several dark worms behind him. This time, instead of running away, he charges straight at them. Using his new skills, he wipes out the first wave in record time. As he continues defeating more of them, he unlocks additional skills, which only makes fighting easier and more efficient. After wiping them all out, he starts to feel hungry again. However, he doesn't want to eat the dark worms since they tasted awful the last time, so he spots some mushrooms nearby and decides to try those instead. That quickly turns out to be a terrible idea because he soon realizes the mushrooms are poisonous. After dealing with the consequences, he firmly decides that he's never going to eat random mushrooms again. With that lesson learned, he heads deeper into the forest to look for real prey. Since he really doesn't want to keep surviving on dark worms, he explores for a while until he spots a gray wolf nearby, and even though it's bigger than him, he still manages to use his baby breath and dragon punch to take it down. The fire slightly burns the wolf's skin, and after taking a whiff, he realizes that it smells just like barbecue. Curious, he uses his baby breath to grill it a bit more, and when he finally takes a bite, he finds that it's absolutely delicious. After that, he comes across another gray wolf and defeats it almost instantly, and this causes him to level up all the way to level 20 out of 25. With this, he realizes that he still needs to gain 5 more levels before he can finally evolve again. Once the wolf is dead, he begins grilling it just like before and slowly realizes that he's starting to get used to living like a dragon. Hunting, fighting, and eating like this is becoming normal to him. Still, even though he's getting stronger, having only the divine voice to talk to is starting to feel very lonely and boring. Because of that, he finds himself wishing that he could have his own best friend by his side. That wish is answered much faster than he expects, because not long after, he suddenly hears voices coming from somewhere in the distance. He can't understand the language they're speaking at all, but even so, he feels relieved when he hears them because he knows those voices belong to humans. He quickly hides behind a nearby tree and carefully looks out, spotting a small group of adventurers walking closer. At first, he thinks about showing himself and trying to talk to them, but then he remembers that he's a dragon. Because of that, he wonders if they might attack him the moment they see him. Still, he thinks that since he's small, harmless looking, and kind of cute, they might not see him as a threat. He even considers that they might keep him as a pet instead. With that hopeful thought in mind, he steps out from behind the tree and stands in front of them, trying his best to act cute and non-threatening. Unfortunately, his plan completely fails. fails. The adventurers don't see him as cute at all. Instead, they only see him as prey and valuable meat. Without hesitation, the leader of the group slashes him across the chest with his sword. Right after that, the man uses magic that numbs his entire body and makes it impossible for him to move properly. He desperately tries to run away, but his body won't respond because of the numbing effect. As he lies there, helpless, he watches the adventurers slowly walk toward him, clearly preparing to kill him. At that moment, he realizes how foolish he was to believe that a dragon could ever befriend humans. After everything he endured and all the effort he put into evolving and surviving, it feels like it's all about to end in a meaningless and pointless death. Just as the leader raises his weapon and prepares to deal the finishing blow, a female adventurer suddenly steps in and stops him. She says that there's no need to kill such a small, cute, and innocent-looking dragon. Confused, he wonders why he's still alive. After a few seconds, he starts to feel a warm sensation spreading through his body. When he looks up, he realizes that the female adventurer is using healing magic on him. He quickly uses his appraisal skill and learns that her name is Myria. Even though her MP is low, she still chooses to heal him anyway. Myria continues speaking to him, and after a short while, the system announces that he has gained the Greek language skill, which would allow him to understand human language more clearly if he levels it up. However, this calm and gentle moment doesn't last long. Suddenly, loud screams echo from somewhere ahead. Myria instantly recognizes the voices as belonging to her comrades, and without thinking, she tries to rush forward to help them. Before she can go, he grabs her arm and desperately signals for her to stop, warning her that whatever is ahead is far too dangerous for her to face alone. Even so, Myria pulls away and runs off anyway, leaving him behind. He realizes that he can't just stand there and do nothing while the girl who saved his life is in danger. Gathering his courage, he forces himself to move and rushes after her. When he finally reaches the scene, his fear deepens as he sees the monster they're fighting. It's a rock dragon, a C-rank monster. To make things even worse, it has 197 GP, which means it would take an enormous amount of damage to defeat it. Myria has already been injured by the monster, and when he calls out to her, the rock dragon turns its attention toward him instead. Staring at the massive creature now focused on him, he freezes in fear, unable to move, and wonders if this is truly how everything comes to an end. He immediately runs and hides deeper inside the bushes, curling in on himself as fear takes over. His mind races as he wonders how he is supposed to survive this situation. However, the moment he cautiously peeks out from the bushes and sees Myria lying on the ground with only 6 HP left, his fear turns into full-blown panic. Before he can even think clearly, the divine voice suddenly speaks to him, ordering him to get the hell out of there. It warns him that if he confronts that monster head-on, he has absolutely no chance of surviving. Hearing this only makes him panic even more. Deep down, he knows the divine voice is right. He is far too weak, inexperienced, and unprepared to face a rock dragon of that size. Realistically, the smartest and safest option would be to turn around and run as fast as he can. That is the logical choice. Even so, despite understanding all of that, he cannot bring himself to abandon Myria and leave her there to die. With no time left to hesitate, he forces himself into action. He narrowly dodges one of the rock dragon's attacks, then immediately counters by striking it straight in the face. After doing that, he quickly glances to the side and notices the 2 adventurers he encountered earlier. One of them is already dead, while the other is barely clinging to life with only 5 HP remaining. Seeing this, he quickly forms a plan. His goal is to draw the rock dragon away from them, create some distance, and then circle back to help the survivors if he can. He turns and runs, pushing his body as hard as possible to escape. However, before he can get far, the rock dragon slams the ground with a powerful tremor. The impact throws him off balance, sending him crashing to the ground. As he struggles to recover, the rock dragon charges straight toward him, closing the distance in an instant. The rock dragon is now moving closer to him, and right as it jumps forward to attack, he reacts at once and throws a fire-covered punch straight into the rock dragon's face, hitting it head-on. He believes that this attack should have taken away at least half of the dragon's HP, but to his shock, the rock dragon suddenly begins to heal itself, restoring its HP completely as if nothing happened. Even so, he quickly realizes that while the dragon is busy healing, this gives him the perfect chance to grab Myria and escape from the area. However, just before he turns to leave, he remembers that the other adventurer is still alive nearby. He knows deep down that he does not have the strength or time to save both of them, so after after struggling with the decision, he makes the painful choice to leave the adventurer behind to die and focus on saving Myria instead. He lifts Myria and carries her deep into the forest, running as fast as he can, but then he suddenly stops when he realizes he can smell gray wolves nearby. His sense of smell never fails him, and moments later, a full pack of gray wolves begins chasing him while Myria lies on his back. He runs with everything he has until the wolves completely surround him, leaving him with no path left to escape. A few minutes later, Myria briefly opens her eyes and sees him fighting and killing several gray wolves all by himself, using only his bare hands and even his teeth before she passes out again. After every gray wolf is defeated, he continues carrying Myria through the forest once more. Eventually, he spots a small human village in the distance, so he starts shouting loudly for help, hoping the humans will come to their aid, but just as he expected, the humans see him as nothing more than dangerous monster meat, so one of them stabs him with a spear, and the others aim their weapons at him. He desperately tries to explain that he means them no harm, and that he is only trying to save Myria, but the humans don't understand a single word he says. After a short while, he understands that arguing is useless, so he gently places Myria on the ground for the humans to take care of her, and then quickly runs away before they can attack him again. Once he leaves, the humans immediately begin treating Myria's wounds, and he feels relieved knowing that she is finally safe. As he walks away, he realizes that humans and dragons may never truly be able to become friends, so he quietly returns to his home deep within the woods. The next day, Myria wakes up lying in a bed and sees a girl named Marielle staring at her. Marielle explains that Myria was badly injured and was brought to her house so she could be treated properly. She then lets Myria know that she had been unconscious for 2 full days. Myria listens while lying back down, but she cannot stop wondering who it was that carried her out of the forest and into the village. At first, she believes it was her comrades, Grants and Daz, so she asks Marielle where they are. Marielle then tells her that Grants is dead and that his body was found in the forest, and as for Daz, they were unable to find his body at all, so they assumed he was eaten by the rock dragon. Marielle calls Grants and Daz idiots for trying to fight a rock dragon and thinking they ever had a chance of winning. Myria is left completely shocked when she hears that her comrades were eaten, and she immediately starts blaming herself for everything that happened. Marielle tells Myria not to punish herself like that, saying that it is actually better that she was the one who survived because her comrades were stubborn idiots who never listened to anyone. Hearing this, Myria begins to remember how Daz was always the first person in their village to deal with monsters that wandered too close. Many of the village children looked up to him because of that and admired his bravery. However, there was one incident where Daz once encountered a rock dragon and chose to run away instead of fighting it. Because of that event, some of the villagers later teased him about being scared of the rock dragon and fleeing instead of standing his ground. Daz took those words personally and felt deeply insulted, so he swore that the next time he ever saw a rock dragon, he would defeat it no matter what. Then 2 days ago, Daz became obsessed with proving that he was the strongest adventurer around. He even lied and claimed that Marielle had given him permission to go hunt a rock dragon. Myria tried her hardest to warn him and tell him that it was far too dangerous, but Daz let his pride control him and refused to back down. He insisted on going after the rock dragon and even managed to pressure and guilt Myria into coming along with him. That is exactly why Marielle calls Daz a fool, saying that his pride blinded him and ended up costing him his life in the end. Despite everything, Marielle is still surprised that Myria managed to survive and escape without suffering any serious injuries at all. Myria then tells her that someone must have carried her out of the forest, but Marielle quickly interrupts her and says that is impossible. She explains that no adventurer would ever risk their life to save a random injured adventurer from a monster as deadly as a rock dragon. Even so, Myria insists that she clearly remembers someone carrying her back toward the village. Marielle believes that Myria's memories are simply confused because of the heavy blow she took during the battle. Still, Myria cannot fully accept that explanation because she has faint memories of being saved by a dragon. As she thinks about it more, she starts to wonder if it truly was that little dragon who saved her and carried her all the way back to the village. The next day, he wakes up feeling full of energy and is surprised by how much of his injuries healed just from getting a good night's sleep. He realizes that if he were still human, there is no way he would be able to recover this fast. A human body simply could not heal this much overnight. Putting that thought aside, Inside, he looks up at the sky and starts wondering how Myria is doing and whether she is safe or not. His mind drifts back to the fight with the rock dragon, where his attacks barely did any damage and he felt completely powerless the entire time. Because of that memory, a strong sense of motivation rises inside him, and he makes a firm vow to become stronger, no matter what it takes, so he can protect people who are in danger. With that goal in mind, he immediately begins training by tracking down a group of dark worms and wiping them out, hoping to gain enough XP to reach the next stage of evolution. Not long after, he receives a notification telling him that he has reached level 25 and has now met the requirements to evolve. Unlike before, when he only had 2 evolution options to choose from, he now has 5 different evolution paths available. He feels conflicted and unsure about which one to pick, so the divine voice decides to step in and explain them to him. The voice starts by talking about the mini dragon, explaining that it has a small body similar to his current baby dragon form, but its evolution speed is slow and it has very limited future evolution choices. He immediately loses interest after hearing that, since slow growth is not what he wants at all, and asks the voice to explain the next option instead. The divine voice goes through each evolution choice one by one, explaining them in detail, but the one that grabs his attention the most is the young plague dragon. The young plague dragon is described as the first stage of an evil dragon that spreads disaster wherever it goes. Its advantages include high intelligence and the ability to use a human transformation skill, allowing it to turn into a human and freely visit villages. At first, he quickly rejects the idea as soon as he hears that it is the spawn of an evil dragon. However, after thinking for a moment, he suddenly realizes that the voice mentioned human transformation. His face heats up as he imagines being able to turn into a human and walk through villages whenever he wants. Even so, he knows that choosing this evolution would mean becoming a plague-bearing evil dragon, so he finds himself stuck and unable to decide, fully aware that making the wrong choice could ruin everything. He knows that becoming a young plague dragon sounds like a bad idea in every way, but he is worried about Myria. On top of that, he still really wants to get the human transformation skill. With all of this in mind, he finally makes up his mind and says that he is going to evolve into a young plague dragon. The divine voice acknowledges his choice, and he immediately begins the evolution process. His body changes, and the transformation is intense. When it is finally over, he looks into the water to see his reflection. That is when he realizes that he looks a lot uglier than he used to be. The divine voice then announces all the skills he has been upgraded to, and at first, he is extremely excited. Hearing about all the new abilities makes him feel powerful and hopeful. However, that excitement quickly fades when he sees all the evil type skills he has also gained. The list of dark and dangerous abilities makes him uncomfortable and worried about what kind of creature he is becoming. What makes things even worse is that the main reason he chose this evolution was to get the human transformation skill. When he looks at his status board, he sees that the skill is nowhere to be found. Feeling frustrated, he asks the divine voice if he is supposed to level up first before he can get that skill. Once again, the divine voice proves to be useless and simply says that it cannot provide that kind of explanation since he is only level 3. This answer only makes him more annoyed and confused. The system then continues to explain the rest of his current skills in detail. With every new skill that is revealed, he becomes more shocked. Many of them sound cruel, poisonous, or meant to spread sickness and destruction. Each time he learns more, he mentally crashes, realizing just how evil and dangerous this dragon form truly is. At this point, he regrets his decision deeply and just wants to go back to being a cute little dragon instead of this terrifying plague creature. Meanwhile, Marielle goes with Myria to re-enchant the warding stones. Myria is still confused, unsure whether the monster that saved her was real or just her imagination. Marielle takes the situation seriously. She reasons that if a monster was able to enter because the warding stones were broken, then that means there is a serious problem with their defenses. Shortly after she finishes re-enchanting the warding stones, Myria asks Marielle to tell her more about monsters. Marielle notices that Myria has been oddly obsessed with monsters ever since the incident she went through. Myria explains that it is because she has a strong feeling that the monster back then was actually trying to save her. That thought has not left her mind, and she wants to understand monsters better because of it. Marielle figures that it will not hurt to let Myria know more about monsters, so she begins to explain. She tells her that monsters grow stronger with every evolution, and they usually do this this by hunting other creatures in order to level up. Marielle explains that levels are something humans have as well, since people also improve their abilities by gaining experience. However, monsters work a little differently. She goes on to explain that once monsters reach their maximum level, they do not simply stop growing. Instead, they evolve into a monster that is one rank higher. After that, the process repeats. They hunt, level up again, reach another limit, and then evolve into an even more powerful form. Each evolution makes them stronger, more dangerous, and more difficult to defeat than before. Myria is genuinely shocked when she hears all of this. She cannot believe that people have managed to learn so much about the way monsters grow and evolve. It seems impossible to her that humans could understand creatures that are so different from them, but Marielle tells her that this is not the whole story. Marielle explains that from time to time, there are special people who can hear a divine voice. This divine voice shares information with them about monsters, including their levels, abilities, and even their origins. The people who possess this rare ability are known as heroes or saints. Because of them, humans have been able to gather detailed knowledge about monsters and how they work. Marielle then becomes more serious. She tells Myria that every monster out there is driven to become more powerful and more ferocious. That is their nature. Because of this, even if a monster really did save Myria's life before, the next time they cross paths, that same monster could have evolved into something far more dangerous. In that case, it would most likely attack her instead of helping her. Finally, Marielle warns Myria not to get the wrong idea about monsters. She explains that monsters are nothing more than embodiments of pure fighting instinct. They exist to grow stronger through battle and conflict. Because of that, monsters and humans were never meant to coexist peacefully. After saying this, Marielle turns and walks away, leaving Myria alone with a lot to think about. Meanwhile, he is still bent on leveling up so he can finally achieve human transformation and will finally be able to see Myria again. He hopes to find some weak monsters so that he can level up quickly and get closer to that goal. But after moving for a while, he realizes that it is a little hard for him to move. When he looks up, he sees that he has been stuck in a giant web, and a giant spider monster has just landed behind him with a heavy thud. He immediately takes a look at the spider's stats and sees that they are far too high for him to handle at his current level. So he quickly realizes that he probably cannot beat it in his current state. The spider strikes first, and he reacts by hitting it with his baby breath attack. The attack clearly inflicts a lot of damage, but when he checks the spider's stats screen, he notices that the spider's HP has barely gone down at all. Determined to try something else, he decides to use some of the plague dragon's paralysis attack. He launches a large flurry of those attacks, hoping to weaken or slow it down. Even after all of that, the spider still has over half of its HP remaining, which makes him realize that brute force alone will not work. Seeing how strong the spider is and how little impact his attacks are having, he figures that his best bet is to get the hell out of there before it is too late. He runs away as fast as he can, but before he can even realize it, the spider is right behind him, moving far faster than he expected. He tries using his flight skill to escape, but he immediately realizes that his level is still too low to lift off properly, so he has no choice but to continue rolling and dodging as he makes his way forward. He continues rolling and maneuvering until he spots a nearby cliff. Despite knowing that his flying skill is still unreliable at his current level, he decides to take the risk and open his wings at the last second. By doing this, he is able to glide safely over to the other side of the cliff. Once he lands, he lets out a small celebration, feeling a sense of relief and accomplishment that he managed to get away from the spider this time without getting hurt. However, just as he is about to leave, he notices something alarming. The spider has used its webs to create a bridge across the gap and is making its way over to him. He freezes for a moment, realizing that this fight is far from over. He then continues to roll away as fast as he possibly can, dodging obstacles and trying to put as much distance as possible between himself and the spider. Along the way, he runs into several other monsters, and each time he defeats them without too much trouble. He keeps moving and fighting, gradually building up experience from each encounter. After a little while of doing this, the divine voice suddenly announces to him that he has gone from level 3 to level 8. Hearing this, he realizes that he might actually have a shot at beating the spider now if he plays his cards right. Just as he is getting ready to fight again, the spider releases a cloud of poison gas. The sudden attack makes him jump up into the trees to avoid it. While he is up there, he remembers that he is actually resistant to poison, skin, so the gas wouldn't affect him at all. He also realizes that the spider doesn't know this, which gives him an opportunity to use the gas to his advantage. He falls from the tree in a way that makes it look like he has been killed by the gas. When the spider comes closer to feast on him, he takes his chance. In midair, he hits the spider with his baby breath and then smacks it into the ground, defeating it once and for all. The experience of defeating such a powerful monster makes his level jump from 8 to 14, and he feels incredibly hyped up. Even with this significant level up, however, he still does not get the human transformation skill. This makes him start to wonder if there is some other condition he has to meet before obtaining it. On his way back, he spots a nearby cave that looks pretty cool. Seeing that no one is inside it, he decides to make it his own personal cave. Later, he makes his dinner inside. After eating, sits back and reflects. He wonders whether he will ever be able to coexist with humans, but quickly realizes that it is unlikely because of how frightening he looks in his current plague dragon form. What makes it even worse is that he still hasn't gained the human transformation skill, which makes him start to quietly regret choosing this form in the first place. Meanwhile, at a local diner, Myria is in shock because she just heard an old-timer claim that he saw Dawes earlier. According to him, he had been out fishing near the forest when he saw Dawes walking deeper into the woods until he disappeared from sight. Everyone knows the old man to be a drunkard, so most of them assume he is just imagining things or doesn't know what he is talking about. However, the elder insists that he saw Dawes clearly. Myria immediately rushes to tell Marielle what she heard and asks for permission to search the forest. Marielle immediately shuts her down, explaining that there is no way Dawes could still be alive, because if he were, he would have returned to the village by now. Seeing how much this has affected Myria, Marielle reassures her that she will have the guild investigate the situation and see what can be done. Myria is grateful to hear that, feeling a small sense of relief. The next day, he wakes up feeling energized and more determined than ever to achieve human transformation. However, he notices a strange slime on the floor nearby. Curious about what it is, he attempts to check its stats. The moment he does, his eyes glitch and he feels a sharp pain that hurts really badly. Despite the discomfort, this attempt causes his view stats skill to level up to 4. With this new level, he can finally see a faint image of the slime's stat screen. As he reads through it, he cannot believe his eyes. He is stunned and confused as he wonders why a slime like that would carry such incredibly powerful stats, far beyond what he expected for a simple creature. Just then, the slime tries to attack him, but he manages to escape before it's too late. He ends up deciding to just let the slime be. After that, he continues his search in a new direction. A few minutes later, he stumbles across a neat-looking pot and figures it will be good to store some fruit. But when he picks it up, it immediately springs back and turns out to be a D-rank monster known as a potortoise, a pot and a tortoise at the same time. He immediately tries to take it out with his dragon punch, but even after landing that attack head-on, it barely does any damage. He figures he may just not be trying hard enough, so after he hits it with all he has, the potortoise just uses its rest skill to regenerate its health back to full. Out of frustration, he just begins to wrestle it and tries the brute force approach, but its shell is way too hard for him to pry, so that's definitely not going to work. But that's when he remembers that this is a tortoise and not a turtle, and since tortoises are known to be terrible swimmers, he just tosses it into the river and calls it a day. The system announces that he just gained 36 experience points after defeating it and has now got them up to level 15. A couple of other skills leveled up as well, so he's a bit happy about that. Just as he's about to continue exploring the forest, he runs into another horde of potortoises. At that moment, he realizes that his friend had called in allies before throwing him into the river, and judging by their expressions, they clearly aren't too pleased about seeing their companion get tossed into the water. So after a few moments, they start to combine until they stack on top of each other. But this isn't something he can't handle, so he just jumps into the air and throws one at the rest of them, sending them all crashing down. Since he defeated so many at once, he just gained 594 experience points and went from level 15 to 30 after just one battle. Seeing that, he starts to get a little proud of himself. Still, he's a bit upset that after he defeats a potortoise, the shells always get destroyed, which means he will never get a useful pot. He continues his search in the forest when he realizes that he only has 10 more levels left for his next evolution, and he still hasn't reached the human transformation yet, so he wonders how long it is genuinely going to take. He walks on for a while, but then comes to a sudden stop as he senses an eerie aura and hears some loud footsteps. He hides in the bushes to watch and sees that it is a giant bear walking in the distance. But he can't help but notice that there is something off about this particular bear. He tries to view its stats, but isn't able to since he is too far away. All he can do is see the bear's details. He looks at its details and sees that it is basically the same rank as him, which means he could beat it if he fought hard enough. That aside, he recalls it is called a clay bear, which means it is shaped like a bear but made of clay. So if he manages to defeat it, he may be able to mold it into a pot and finally have a way to store his stuff. The bear hasn't noticed him so far, so he thinks about going for a sneak attack. He drops down from a tree and is about to attack with his fire punch, but the bear turns around at the last second and opens its chest claws, almost biting him in half. After he manages to recover, he uses his speed and a hit and run technique to attack the bear repeatedly until it is down to almost half its HP. Seeing this, he thinks he has an actual shot at winning, but the bear suddenly uses its regeneration skill, healing all its wounds and restoring all its HP. Seeing this, he realizes that his best chance is to continue using the hit and run technique until the bear runs out of MP and can't heal itself. He does this for a while and it seems to be working, but just as he is about to deliver another attack, the bear suddenly screams and unleashes an unseen sandstorm attack. This causes sharp spikes to grow along his back, which completely prevents him from continuing to use his hit and run technique properly. The bear then pulls several of the spikes from its own body and begins throwing them one after another as deadly projectiles. After he dodges these attacks, he notices that pieces of clay break off from the spikes when they strike the ground, and this immediately gives him a clear idea of what he can do next. After the bear throws yet another clay spike at him, he decides not to just dodge this time. Instead, he quickly picks it up, molds the soft clay into a solid ball with his hands, and then uses it along with his powerful meteorite attack to strike the bear directly and finish it off once and for all. He has finally defeated the clay bear, and soon after, the divine voice announces that he has gained 300 experience points and has leveled up from level 30 all the way to level 33. On top of that, he now has full access to the clay, so he returns back home and begins carefully preparing a pot using the clay he collected from the fight. While the clay pot is cooking and slowly taking shape, he decides to venture back into the forest to search for something to eat. After spending a good amount of time exploring the area, he comes across several strange, wild, and unfamiliar plants that he had no idea even existed before now, which makes him both curious and cautious. Meanwhile, Myria is shown venturing deeper into the forest despite Marielle clearly warning her not to go there at all. Myria remains extremely determined to search the forest because if there is even a small chance that Dawes is still alive, she cannot simply stand by and do nothing while he might be suffering or in danger. She is not sure whether the rumor the old man told her about seeing Dawes is actually true, but even with that doubt in her mind, she knows that she still has to try and search for him herself. As she continues walking forward, she encounters a dark worm, but she quickly defends herself and forces it back using a strong fire-based attack. She reminds herself that as long as she stays calm and focused, she should be able to make it through the forest safely. While he is busy learning about the different species of fruits and vegetables and is actually becoming quite fascinated by them, Myria is still out there venturing through the forest in search of Dawes. With every step she takes deeper into the forest, she feels more and more scared, and her heart starts beating faster. When she reaches a certain point, she finally decides that she will only take a quick look around the outskirts of her village before turning back and going home, telling herself not to go any farther than that. Later that night, he gets home and feels happy when he sees that his bowl is finally ready. He uses it along with the vegetables and meat he gathered earlier that day, and after he finishes preparing the meal, he takes a taste. He immediately says that this is the best thing he has ever eaten in his life. However, the bowl he made turns out to be a little hard to drink from and leaks a bit, so he decides that he will make a better and more comfortable one tomorrow. Then the next morning, a carriage is seen passing through a valley. Inside the carriage is a lady who is referred to as Princess Melcia, and she is woken up by two adventurers traveling with her. The two adventurers look toward the forest nearby and quickly agree that this must be the forest the guild wants them to investigate. Meanwhile, he has just returned from hunting wolves. He guts the wolves and goes into the forest to lay their pelts out to dry in the open air. However, this same group of monkeys keeps coming back and eating parts of the pelts whenever he leaves them unattended, and it is really starting to piss him off. With that in mind, he puts an evil look on his face and decides to lace the next batch of pelts with poison so that when the monkeys come to eat them, they will die. After making this decision, he sets out on a journey to find poisonous flowers. He soon walks into a wide field filled with colorful but dangerous poisonous plants. But that is when he stumbles upon something else entirely, a type of monster he has never seen before. He appraises it and finds out that it is a venom princess Lacerda. But what interests him the most is that this species only has poison-related skills. The venom princess suddenly runs away as soon as she notices him, making him think that she got scared and fled. However, not long after that, she suddenly jumps out from nowhere, bites him on the neck, and immediately scurries off again. At this point, he feels completely confused. He wonders why it would bite him so lightly and then run away without finishing the fight. But then a massive wave of poison suddenly floods through his body. It is nothing like anything he has ever felt before. He drops to his knees and realizes that he cannot even move his shoulders. Shortly after that, he collapses to the ground, finally realizing that this was the Venom Princess's plan from the very beginning. He begins to wonder if this poison is different from the normal kind. From what he can feel, it is clearly doing far more damage than it should. His body feels heavy, his breathing is rough, and his thoughts are becoming slower. He understands one clear truth. If he keeps lying there without thinking or making a plan, he is definitely going to die. That thought scares him, but it also forces his mind to stay active. He pushes himself to think, asking what he can possibly do next to survive. After a short moment of thought, he comes to a decision. The only way forward is to learn more about the black lizard that poisoned him. If he understands the creature better, maybe he can find a way to counter the poison. With that hope in mind, he calls out for an appraisal. The divine voice answers and begins to explain. It tells him that the creature is a D-rank monster. This monster is known for a very cruel hunting style. It poisons its prey, then runs away instead of finishing the kill. After the poison has fully taken effect and the prey is helpless or dead, it comes back to feast on the remains. The voice continues, giving him more important information. It explains that this creature, known as the Venom Princess, produces her poison inside her own body. She does this by consuming poisonous substances over time. However, there is one critical weakness. The divine voice reveals that the bodily fluids of the Venom Princess are the only known antidote to the poison she secretes. Hearing this changes everything for him. In that moment, he fully understands his situation. If he wants to live, he must capture the Venom Princess alive and use her bodily fluids to cure himself. There is no other option. Thanks to his poison resistance skill, he is not completely helpless yet. Even though his body feels weak, he can still move a little, using what strength he has left. He activates his roll skill and begins rolling through the forest. Just as he expected, the Venom Princess does not lose interest. She's also making use of the roll skill to stay ahead of him. All of a sudden, he's struck by a clay spike, and that's when he realizes that the Venom Princess can use that skill too. He continues rolling for a long while, pushing himself even as his vision blurs. Then, a memory suddenly hits him. He remembers the cliff he jumped over earlier when he was being chased by the giant spider. That memory gives him an idea. He decides to use the same trick again, this time against the Venom Princess. Gathering every bit of strength he has left, he rolls faster and faster. At the very last second, he turns around and shoves the Venom Princess off the cliff. As she begins to fall, relief flashes through his mind, but that relief instantly turns into panic. He remembers that her bodily fluids are what he needs to survive. If she dies from the fall, then he has sealed his own fate. Without hesitation, he jumps off the cliff after her. Mid-air, the poison surges through his body again, hitting him harder than before. His strength fades rapidly, and his limbs feel like they might stop working at any moment. Still, he refuses to give up. Summoning the last of his power, he uses the force from his baby breath skill. The blast pushes both of them upward with just enough strength. They barely make it back to solid ground. The moment they land, his body finally gives in. The poison has already done serious damage, and he can no longer stay conscious. He collapses to the ground, while the Venom Princess ends up lying on top of his chest. Far away from the forest, Myria is shown returning to her village. She has spent yet another long day searching for Dawes, calling his name and checking every place she can think of. Once again, she finds nothing. All of a sudden, Myria hears Marielle's voice calling out in the distance. She does not want Marielle to discover that she has been sneaking around the forest forest again. If Marielle finds out, she will definitely scold her for it. Acting quickly, Myria rushes out of the woods and walks toward the voice. When she reaches Marielle, she puts on a calm face and greets her like nothing is wrong. Marielle looks relieved the moment she sees Myria. She explains that she has not seen her in a while and started getting worried. She says she searched everywhere for her, even going to Myria's house, but found no sign of her at all. Because of that, she asks Myria directly where she has been this whole time. Myria does not want Marielle to know the truth, especially that she has been searching the forest for Dawes on her own. She tells Marielle that she had a light cold earlier and decided to take a walk outside to clear her head and get some fresh air. Marielle listens, but she does not fully relax. Something about Myria's answer feels off to her. She gets the feeling that Myria might be secretly searching the forest again, just like before. Because of this suspicion, Marielle asks her directly if she has been looking for Dawes in the woods. Myria denies it without hesitation. She repeats that she only came out for a walk because she was not feeling well. Seeing how serious Myria looks, Marielle has no real proof to argue back. With no other choice, she accepts the answer and decides to believe her, changing the topic. Marielle then mentions some new information. She says she heard that a group of adventurers is already on their way to survey the forest and search for Dawes. She tells Myria that professionals are handling it now, so there is no reason for her to worry so much. She gently urges Myria to leave the search to them and focus on staying safe. Myria nods and listens, even though worry still fills her heart. Meanwhile, deep inside the forest, he slowly wakes up. As his vision clears, he notices the Venom Princess sitting in front of him. At first, he assumes the worst. He thinks she stayed behind to feast on him now that the poison should have killed him. However, as he tries to move, he realizes something strange. His arms no longer feel heavy, and the burning pain from the poison is gone. That is when it finally clicks. The Venom Princess did not stay to eat him. She actually gave him the antidote. Somehow, she used her own bodily fluids to save his life. With this realization, he understands something else as well. After he jumped off the cliff to save her, the Venom Princess must have taken a liking to him. Instead of seeing him as prey, she now sees him as something different. In that quiet moment, a bond begins to form between them. This becomes the start of their strange but genuine friendship. Later, he decides to take her back to his home. Once they arrive, he prepares a simple dinner for both of them. As they sit and eat together, he feels something he has not felt in a long time. He feels comfort. He realizes that this is the first time in a while that he has eaten with someone else. The loneliness he had been feeling slowly fades. After spending more time together, a thought crosses his mind. Neither of them has a name. He begins to think about what he could name the Venom Princess. Many ideas come and go, but after a while, he stops himself. He realizes that names are not really necessary. What matters is that they understand each other and are no longer alone. After that, he and the Venom Princess slowly become very close. Over time, they turn into true partners and begin working together to hunt their prey. They learn how to move together, when to attack, and when to fall back. As the days pass, her presence starts to feel normal to him. It no longer feels strange to have her around. Instead, it feels natural, like this is how things are supposed to be now. There is only one thing he still has trouble getting used to. The Venom Princess does not like normal food at all. She refuses to eat anything he gives her. Instead, she only prefers poisonous plants that grow deep in the forest. The poison mushroom smells really bad, so wanting her to stop, he uses his baby breath to burn it before she can eat it. The moment he does this, the Venom Princess gets clearly upset. He immediately understands that he made a mistake. To her, those plants are not dangerous food, they are her source of strength. Burning them feels like an attack on something important to her, so to make up for it, he promises to get her some later. Before he can think of where to find some, something unexpected happens. Out of nowhere, a powerful presence appears. A rare monster known as a twin head steps into view and blocks their path. The creature has two heads, each with a different color and expression. From the way it stares at them, it is clear that it is looking for a fight. He freezes for a brief moment. This is a monster he has never seen before. He quickly notices the strong aura coming from it and senses danger. As he observes it more closely, he realizes that it has multiple special skills like gravity. This makes his confidence shake. He is not sure if he can defeat something like this. Doubt creeps into his mind, but he does not let it control him, even with the danger right in front of them. Neither he nor the Venom Princess is willing to give up. They exchange a quick look and silently agree to fight together. They form a simple plan. He will face the twin head directly directly and keep its attention, while the Venom Princess hides in a tree and waits for the right moment to strike with her poison. He charges forward and attacks first, trying to test the monster's strength. The twin head responds immediately, striking back with force. The counterattack is strong enough to push him back, forcing him to retreat and regain his balance. Before he can react again, the blue head suddenly opens its mouth and begins casting magic. A glowing magic circle appears beneath him, and in an instant, the gravity around him increases dramatically. His body slams into the ground as the gravity becomes almost unbearable, feeling like it is 100 times heavier than normal. He struggles to move, and his muscles screaming under the pressure. Just when it seems like he is trapped, the Venom Princess makes her move. From her hiding spot, she fires a clay dart coated with poison at the twin head. The attack interrupts the spell, and the gravity effect disappears, freeing him. The moment he regains control of his body, he leaps into the air with everything he has left. He unleashes his baby breath directly at the twin head, hitting it head-on. He expects the attack to finish the monster. However, to his shock, the twin head regenerates its health right before his eyes. Although surprised, he does not panic. Instead, he feels a sense of relief. In that short exchange, he has learned something important. He now understands that the blue head is responsible for casting magic, while the red head handles physical attacks. With this knowledge, he knows their next move will be smarter and more focused. He rushes straight toward the twin head without slowing down. The red head snaps forward and bites into him. Pain shoots through him, but he does not scream. This was exactly what he planned. While the red head is focused on biting him, he twists his body and throws a fast, powerful uppercut straight into the blue head. The blow lands cleanly and knocks the blue head off balance. That brief opening is all the Venom Princess needs. She leaps down from her hiding place and bites the blue head, delivering a direct poison bite. The twin head roars in pain and immediately activates its regeneration skill. At first, it seems like the wounds are healing, but then something strange happens. Even as the flesh regenerates, the monster's HP continues to drop. The poison is far stronger than its healing ability. Seeing this, he feels confident for the first time. He is sure that this battle is now theirs to win. Suddenly, the twin head does something no one expected. The poison has only spread through the blue head's side of the body. To stop it from spreading any further, the red head bites down hard and tears the blue head off completely. He freezes in shock, unable to believe what he just witnessed. A moment later, he feels a small sense of relief. With the blue head gone, the monster can no longer use magic. That relief does not last long. It turns out that sacrificing one of its heads is part of the twin head's special abilities. The blue head, even though it has been torn off, is still alive. It hits the ground and immediately starts moving on its own. Without wasting time, it turns and begins chasing after the Venom Princess. He tries to rush after her, but the red head blocks his path. He is forced to stay and fight. With magic no longer in play, the battle becomes a test of pure strength and technique. The red head attacks fiercely, swinging and biting with everything it has. He responds with steady movements and sharp counters, refusing to back down. The fight does not last long. Using his experience and timing, he finds an opening and unleashes his nutcracker technique. The attack lands perfectly and ends the redhead's life once and for all. As the silence settles in, his heart starts racing again. He remembers the other head. Panic fills him as he realizes the Venom Princess is still in danger. She is the only friend he has made since coming to this world. In that moment, he does not care about turning back into a human or gaining new powers. He silently begs the gods to let her still be alive. He searches desperately through the area. After what feels like forever, he finally sees movement. The Venom Princess crawls out from behind a bush, badly wounded but alive. Relief floods his body. Before he can reach her, the blue head suddenly appears from behind, lunging forward to finish her off. He reacts without thinking. Using only his bare hands, he grabs the blue head and crushes it with all his strength, ending the threat once and for all. When it is finally over, he rushes to the Venom Princess and pulls her into his arms. He holds her tightly and tells her that he does not care about becoming human anymore. He says he is fine being a dragon as long as he can stay with her. At that moment, the system's voice echoes in his mind, announcing his new stat increases. It then adds one final message, stating that he has unlocked human transformation. His eyes widen in shock as he hears this. Meanwhile, back at the village, Myria and Marielle are busy preparing for the arrival of the adventurers. Myria wonders what kind of people they will be, since their village rarely gets visitors. Just then, they hear a knock at the door door. Moments later, the adventurers step inside. The two adventurers introduce themselves as Melcha and Yuno. They explain to Marielle that they were the pair sent to the village to search for a missing person. Marielle welcomed them politely and thanked them for coming. She then explained the situation in detail. The person they were looking for was Daz, one of Myria's comrades. Marielle was deeply worried. She feared that Myria had been entering the forest alone to search for Daz. The forest was dangerous, and going alone was reckless. Marielle believed that if clear proof of Daz's death were found, Myria would finally stop risking her life searching for him. For that reason, she asked Melcha and Yuno to enter the forest and confirm whether Daz was truly dead. Though the task was grim, it would bring closure. Melcha and Yuno accepted the request. With preparations complete, they set out toward the forest to begin their search for Daz's corpse. Meanwhile, elsewhere, he was focused on something entirely different. He could not stop thinking about the fact that he had finally unlocked the human transformation skill. The excitement filled him with disbelief. For so long, he had lived as a dragon. Now, he had the chance to become human again. He made his way to an open field where no one would see him. This was the perfect place to test the skill safely. As he stood there, he paused for a moment. He could hardly believe that he was about to return to human form. It felt strange and almost ironic. He had only recently convinced himself that he could live without being human. Yet now that he had the chance to transform, he realized how much he still wanted it. Becoming human again would change things. If he lived as a human, his relationship with the Venom Princess might not remain the same. As a dragon, they had grown close. There was a bond between them that might shift if he changed forms. Even so, he wanted both. He wanted to stay by her side, but he also wanted to live properly in a village as a human. He wanted to walk openly, speak freely, and exist without fear. He began to reason through the situation. If he could switch between human and dragon every 3 days, then perhaps he could balance both lives. He could spend time in the village as a human and return to dragon form when necessary. That way, he would not have to choose one life over the other. However, as he stood there thinking, his mind began to race. A strange thought then crossed his mind. What if he turned into a girl instead of a man? The idea startled him. He had no idea how specific the skill was. Would it restore his exact former body, or would it create something entirely different? He realized he was overthinking the situation. There was no way to know the outcome without trying. Worrying would not change the result. He took a deep breath and steadied himself. It was time to test the skill. He activated the human transformation ability. He imagined standing there as a handsome man, restored to what he once was. Instead, the result shocked him. Rather than transforming into a proper human, his body shifted into a twisted and grotesque shape. He did not become a normal man. He became an uglier and more distorted version of the plague dragon. He crashes out for the next few moments as frustration overwhelmed him as he demanded an explanation from the divine voice. He asked what had just happened and why the transformation failed so badly. As usual, the divine voice was unhelpful. It calmly told him that he needed to level up more before it could provide further details. His frustration only grew when he checked his status window. His attack and defense had both dropped to half of their normal values. On top of that, his MP was draining at a rapid rate just by maintaining the form. It was unstable and inefficient. Remaining like this would only make him weaker and more vulnerable. With that realization, he gave up on the human transformation experiment for now. There was no point in keeping a form that made him weaker. He immediately transformed back into his original dragon body. Meanwhile, Melcha and Yuno continued their search for Daz. During their exploration, they encountered a spider monster deep within the forest, but the two adventurers worked together efficiently and defeated it without much trouble. Despite their efforts, they still had not found any trace of Daz. As night began to fall, exhaustion set in. The forest grew darker and more dangerous. They considered ending the search for the day and returning to the village. However, just as they were about to turn back, they discovered something unusual. Hidden among the trees was a cave. At the entrance stood two small dragon statues. Yuno assumed they were decorations created by dragon worshippers. It seemed like the most obvious explanation. However, Melcha immediately expressed doubt. She had never heard of any religion dedicated to dragon worship in this region. More importantly, she could sense magic coming from the statues. They were not simple carvings. They had been carefully crafted and imbued with magical energy. The presence of magic made the situation suspicious. Something deliberate was happening here. Cautiously, they stepped inside the cave. What they found surprised them. The interior did not look like a wild monster's den. Instead, it was clean and organized. It almost felt comfortable. The walls were reinforced in certain areas with lights, and there were signs of deliberate arrangement. After observing the surroundings for a short while, they assumed it might be a hideout used by thieves or smugglers because it did not look natural. A few moments later, they encountered the Venom Princess. She appeared silently before them. Instead of attacking, she simply hissed at them in warning, but she did not advance. After a brief standoff, she turned and walked away deeper into the cave. Melcia immediately recognized the species. The Venom Princess was known to be extremely dangerous. Even a single bite could result in fatal death. She advised that they should leave at once. Whatever was happening inside this cave was beyond a simple search mission. Outside the cave, he had already noticed the girl's presence. From a distance, he saw Melcia and Yuno enter. Excitement stirred within him. This would be the second time he had interacted with humans since his reincarnation. Despite what had happened earlier with the failed transformation, he still felt curious and hopeful. Perhaps this time, things would go better and he would be able to form a connection. With that thought, he activated the transformation skill again and approached the cave entrance to greet them. As soon as Melcia and Yuno saw him, their reaction was immediate. They did not see a friendly figure. They saw a monster. His grotesque appearance left no room for misunderstanding. Without hesitation, they attacked. Caught off guard, he barely had time to react. Their strikes were quick and precise, after which they quickly retreated and ran out of the cave as fast as possible. After they had run far enough from the cave, Yuno slowed down and turned to Melcia. She asked what their next move should be. Should they return to the village and report what they had seen? Melcia shook her head. They had no clear findings, no proof about Dawes, and no solid explanation for what was inside that cave. Reporting now would only raise more questions. Yuno understood what that meant. Melcia was suggesting they contact the rest of their crew. If something powerful was hiding in that cave, it was not something the two of them should handle alone. They needed reinforcement. She told Yuno that they should leave the forest immediately and regroup with their team before making any further decisions. The next day, he woke up inside his cave feeling refreshed. After a full night of rest, his energy had returned. The frustration from the failed human transformation had faded slightly. For now, he decided to focus on more practical matters. He walked over to his food supply and looked at the stacks of dried meat he had prepared. The jerky was meant to last him for weeks. However, the monkeys in the forest had developed a habit of sneaking in and stealing it. He had chased them off several times, but they always returned. As he stared at the meat, an idea formed in his mind. He approached the Venom Princess and politely asked her for assistance. He requested that she create a poison that was both odorless and tasteless. His plan was simple. He would coat the jerky with the poison. When the monkeys came to steal it, they would eat it and die. That would finally solve the problem. The Venom Princess agreed without hesitation. She prepared the poison carefully, ensuring it had no noticeable scent or flavor. Once it was ready, he applied it evenly across several pieces of jerky and placed them in clear view. Then he waited. The forest remained quiet for some time. The monkeys did not appear immediately. He stayed hidden and patient. Eventually, the familiar rustling of branches signaled their arrival. As expected, a group of monkeys crept toward the cave entrance. Within moments, the poison began to take effect. The monkeys started to weaken. Others collapsed onto the ground. It was working. That was when he made his move. He swooped in and activated his attack skill, striking the remaining monkeys before they could escape. However, he quickly realized he had underestimated them. Even while weakened, they were more resilient than he thought. A few of them attempted to surround him and attack together. Still, they were no match for the coordination between him and the Venom Princess. She struck precisely, using her clay spikes to weaken them further. He followed up with direct attacks, pushing them back. Just as it seemed the fight was ending, one of the monkeys let out a loud, piercing scream. The sound echoed through the forest. The ground began to tremble slightly. Heavy footsteps approached from a distance. A massive gorilla emerged from the forest. Its size alone was intimidating. It towered over him and radiated strength. This was clearly the leader of the group. For a brief moment, he felt a flicker of unease. The creature was far larger than anything he had faced ever before. However, instead of reacting blindly, he opened his status window and examined the gorilla's stats carefully. After comparing them to his own, he noticed something surprising. Stat for stat, they were nearly equal. He then looked closer at the giant ape's status and noticed something alarming. The creature possessed a special skill that boosted the stats of its subordinates. The moment it activated that ability, the remaining monkeys changed. Their strength increased increased several times over, and their speed rose sharply. What had been manageable opponents suddenly became overwhelming. He and the Venom Princess were quickly pushed back. The enhanced monkeys attacked in coordinated waves, with each strike carrying more force than before. The situation turned against them in an instant. He urgently called out to the system for information. The divine voice says that the monster was not actually a gorilla. It was an evolved form of an orangutan, classified as a D+ rank monster. That explained its intelligence and leadership ability. For a moment, he believed it was over. With the boosted monkeys and a powerful leader, their chances seemed slim. But then he remembered something he had seen earlier in the creature's status window. The giant orangutan possessed a telepathic communication skill that gave him an idea. He quickly grabbed one of the monkeys and restrained it, using it as a hostage. Then he focused and attempted to communicate telepathically with the orangutan. He told it that they did not want unnecessary conflict. He explained that he and the Venom Princess were only defending their territory and had no desire for war. He suggested they both step back and end the fight peacefully. The orangutan's voice echoed directly in his mind. It said that letting them go was impossible. They had already proven themselves to be too dangerous. If allowed to live, they would remain a threat to the clan. It was better to eliminate them now, regardless of the cost. Hearing that response, he understood there would be no negotiation. The only path left was battle. He then proposed a duel. The orangutan valued the pride and traditions of its clan. A duel was considered sacred among them. After a brief pause, the orangutan accepted the challenge. The surrounding monkeys immediately stepped back. According to their custom, none were allowed to interfere in a sacred duel. Our guy felt relief. He had successfully turned a chaotic group fight into a fair one-on-one battle. The duel began shortly after. At first, it appeared as though he was retreating constantly. To an untrained eye, it looked like he was running. In reality, he was baiting the orangutan into overextending. Each time the orangutan lunged forward, he sidestepped and landed precise counterattacks. Several of those strikes dealt more damage than he had anticipated. Gradually, the tide shifted. He gained the upper hand. The orangutan's movements slowed slightly from accumulated damage. However, the fight was far from over. Suddenly, the orangutan made a drastic decision. It spent all of its available stat points on agility. In an instant, its speed increased dramatically. Its movements became almost impossible to track. The momentum of the battle reversed again. Now he was the one being overwhelmed. Realizing he could not keep up, he made the same choice. He poured all of his remaining stat points into agility as well. So now, with both fighters now focused entirely on speed, the duel shifted into a brutal exchange of direct blows. They traded heavy punches back and forth. Each hit landed with full force. The sound of impact echoed through the clearing. Their bodies began to show clear signs of damage. After several more exchanges, it was clear that either one of them could collapse at any moment. Our guy understood that he was nearing his limit. If the fight continued much longer, he might lose. He decided to end it with one final attack. As the orangutan threw another powerful punch, he activated a special technique. It was a dragon counter punch, designed to redirect the opponent's force while delivering a decisive strike of his own. He timed it perfectly and drove his punch cleanly into the orangutan's face. The impact was devastating. The orangutan staggered and began to fall. For a brief second, he believed he had won. But just before collapsing, the orangutan summoned its remaining strength and delivered one last heavy punch. The strike connected solidly, and he fell to the ground immediately after. Because his decisive blow had landed first, he was recognized as the winner. As his eyes slowly closed, he saw the Venom Princess standing over him protectively. Then the divine voice echoed in his mind. He had gained 162 experience points and reached level 39. That was episode 6. Subscribe to not miss the next part and watch the next video on screen.